What does all of this mean? Well, there is an opportunity here to be seen. You can see it visually, but let's not be naive, and I don't think we are. It also represents challenge. How do we organize all of this to make sure that what we see represented there is based on a statewide, national, and international need? This is so much bigger than local and regional at the end of the day. My 5-year-old, I want to be educated for the world. I don't want him to be educated for a local or regional issue. I want him to have an education that will serve him wherever he chooses to live for the rest of his life. And so it is a big thinking opportunity and responsibility that we all have. How do we make certain that this is organized in a way that will meet the needs of that vision? The state university system cannot create that vision. The college system cannot do it. The ICUF and proprietary schools can't do it. It has to be done together. And it has to be done in harmony, in concert with the business community, with our leaders in government, to make sure that when we all step back and look at it, we can first see the visual need of the state of Florida, and then we all can work together and continue to articulate what we do to make sure that we're meeting that need. And again, it far transcends what happens at the border of the state of Florida. But if you stop and consider the pipeline of opportunity, the people who have gone through a public or private education K through 12, gone to a community college and then on to a university and gotten their graduate degree and are now working in the state of Florida as a well-educated member of our citizenry, we need to create that more and more as the everyday norm. It's critical to the future of the state of Florida. So I commit this, and not just as the chancellor, I commit this as a member of the state university system, and I know I speak on behalf of our board, that we really do want to continue, not start, because we already do a great deal of it. We want to continue to work side by side with all of our partners in the state of Florida, not only the education delivery systems, but again, that business community, the legislature, the governor's office, all of the constituencies who hold the stakes as dear as I do and we all do, to make sure at the end of the day that we are not just fairly fresh fish, Mr. Chairman, that we are still wriggling. We are so fresh. And I really believe that being the best is the only place to want to be. That's not arrogance. You've got to start by saying middle of the pack ain't good enough. You've got to start by saying second isn't good enough. You got to set your sights at being the absolute runaway best and work every day to get there. And I'm convinced that all the people in this room and those we represent are up to that challenge for the future. So with that, I will stop and give way to our colleague, Susan Story.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also would like to thank all of you. Chairman Fair, thank you so much. Chair McDevitt, Commissioner Smith, Chancellor Brogan. Also, I want to thank all the members of the Board of Education and the Board of Governors. You get paid a whole lot of money to do this. You spend a tremendous amount of time and energy and effort, and you only do it because you love this state and you love the young people in this state and the not so young people in this state, and you want to see our economy grow. And I just want to express my appreciation for all the time and effort that you all put into this. It's very much appreciated. The Florida Council of 100 has always had education as a key priority. We've had white papers through the years. We've been involved in a lot of the big efforts that have come along. In a time that we have now with the economy the way it is, what we are seeing is not just the Florida Council of 100, but business groups across the state. When we talk about the economy, we talk about everything else we need to do, we pull back and say, where does it start? And I will tell you that all the business groups that I'm involved in the past 18 months to 2 years have said, it is not enough for us just to say education is what is most critical. It is not enough for us to hand off to the boards of education, to the Board of Governors, to all the teachers and say, here's what we need, go do it. We know that we have to be a part of the solution. We've got to be part of helping us get to where we need to be. And we want to do it beyond just the white papers and talking about it. We want to be in there with you. As individual businesses, we need to do that. Scripps is a great example. What they're doing in this community with all young people, pre-K, elementary school, secondary, the universities is really a role model. And we have companies all over the state who have as their priority to get involved with education. as part of this renewed emphasis on us being part of the solution and not just stepping back looking to others to deliver what we need, we came together and said we need to look at education, and we are in the process of developing a position paper on education that we share with the legislature, the governor's office, and we want it to be something that reflects education as a whole. I love the words from the State Board of Education, this seamlessness of this, which says when we started, we put ourselves in the silos that we all tend to. We looked at higher ed. We looked at state colleges and community colleges. We looked at pre-K through 12. Then we stepped back and said, if we're asking others to do this, we can't look at it this way. So what you will see that we're looking at is a seamless look, and we have 4 zones. And the first zone, for example, says pre-K, but it's about getting you to pre-K also, which, as you know, is so critical, so that kids can even be ready to learn when they get there. Then we look at zone 2, which is primary and secondary, and all the issues that go there. And then we've got zone 3, which is post-secondary, and zone 4, which is workforce. And as you know, the workforce component, people go from all different areas in those zones. Zone 3, zone 2, I mean, we're going to have graduates from different areas. How do we deal with all of these issues together? And I've heard everything you all have said today has been terrific, and we agree with it. What we would like to do is just kind of summarize so that I'm not going through this and I'm not going to use PowerPoint. There are 4 issues that kind of bubble to the top, and we would like, as you have your discussion, and you've already addressed most of those, these are the 4 basic issues, principles that we think we need to come together and say, how do we solve this? And we don't have the answers. And we know that with your backgrounds, your expertise, that you all have the ideas to do this. Number 1 has already been alluded to, and that's the seamlessness of what we're doing. How do we look at education in this state as a whole? Today, you are doing that. You are making steps toward doing that just by meeting together. The comments that we've heard from the commissioner, from the chancellor, from both chairs, says we understand we've got to do this together, and we can't do it in isolation of everyone else. And we just applaud that, because that is a critical piece of what we're trying to do and what we think has to happen. And that also involves the issue of access. As our commissioner said, access for every child in this state, regardless of their demographic, regardless of their economic situation. The second thing we think is critical is that it is demand and market driven in terms of what we provide in education. And Commissioner Smith mentioned the STEM initiative. Several of you mentioned that. As I've gone around the state, there are some people who are saying, well, I think STEM is great, but are you saying that arts is not as important? Are you saying that these other things are not important? And I want to say clearly now, that's not what we're saying. In fact, those all are critical. This is not a judgment on content, but what it says is when you look at what the marketplace is demanding now and where we have shortages, it is in the STEM areas. And hopefully when we focus on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, we'll look back in 10 or 15 years, have adequate supplies, and there may be another area that we need to focus on that's very different. That would be success, I think. So I just want to say that our second principle is, are we being market-driven, demand-driven? Are we delivering what businesses and organizations and government, all of our employers need, and the non-governmental organizations? Are we delivering that? So number 3 that we want to make sure, and we've had a lot of discussion about this already, is the issue of high expectations, accountability, and rewarding performance. Now, I will tell you that in many ways, Florida is ahead of the game. A lot of the work that's been done, especially pre-K through 12 in the past several years, has moved us to where, from this issue of accountability and rewarding performance, that we're not where we need to be, but we're further along. But what other things do we need to do? Chair McDevitt, you made the comment, you all have just looked at and passed one of the largest accountability measures that university system has had in this state. That's terrific, because we know as part of the tuition differential, there's going to be requirements. We believe, as you do, that you need not just inputs, outputs, and efficiency, but outcomes. As an example, an input is how much are you spending per student in a university. An output is how many are you graduating. Efficiency measure is did they graduate in 6 years. But there's an outcome measure that's a little different. It's a different nuance, and that is how many graduates are graduating in the fields we need them to graduate in targeted occupations. That's an outcome measure. So it's, are we doing that from an accountability standpoint? And the last issue that we address in general in our paper that we feel needs a lot more dialogue is the issue of cost effectiveness, efficiency, and leveraging limited resources. And we all know that the budget situation, and Representative Weatherford is in the back, it's not going to be better this year. We have limited resources. How do we, looking at this holistically, best leverage those resources? Where do we need to spend those dollars most cost effectively? How do we leverage private dollars and how do we leverage federal dollars? Some work has already gone on in terms of some of the efforts going on in the state. You know, there's a lot of issues around this, and one of the ones that Chair McDevitt and Chairman Fair, and we've heard from the Commissioner and as well as the Chancellor, the issue of four-year baccalaureates. How do we deliver those in a way that we optimize the cost effectiveness, we optimize the number and the quality? From business standpoint, you all need to help us. How do we do that? We don't have the answers, but those four things: the seamlessness of what we're trying to do along with access, the issue of market-driven, demand-driven, being very accountable, high expectations, as well as cost effectiveness and efficiency are issues that from business people's perspectives, we'd like to see. You know, we've come a long way, we've done some great things, but in your opinions, what do we need to do to make that even stronger? So thank you again, Chairman Fair. Thank you, Chair McDevitt. I appreciate the opportunity to represent business on this.
Okay, thank you all very much. I've just been advised that the governor is here, and I have to wait a minute. So while we're waiting, do we have any questions for our speakers here before we get started?
I do. Eric, Chancellor, I always forget everyone's official names, I'm sorry, but the 3-year, you said the average for the 3-year degrees at the Florida college system, but those are for the 2-year certificated degrees, right? So that does not include the 4-year baccalaureate. It's not like they're, okay, I just wanted to clarify that. And the only other thing, since I have the podium, is just to thank Susan. I mean, I have a business as well, but I'm on the State Board of Education, and I think that the challenge in terms of efficiency and coordination and collaboration is something that I hope some working group comes out of this group, and we can look at this from taking Chancellor Frank's map and sort of saying, how do we make sure that from a statewide perspective we use technology, location, and fit the market need. I would like to just compliment Mary Ellen and Elia, just for a lot of people in the audience that do not know this. I mean, we are close to, in the state of Florida, in Hillsborough, getting a $100 million Gates grant on teacher quality. That's $100 million. And the other, you know, part of this is this race to the top money, that's the federal money, that we are really, the state's well positioned, the Chancellor and the DOE, and that is another component part, is that they are going to spend, the Gates Foundation is going to spend probably somewhere about $500 million in districts around the country in the next 3 to 5 years, and then take that and roll out more of their money. And for Hillsborough, it's really teacher quality. So Florida was selected because of the leadership of Hillsborough in dealing with the pay for performance. So on the other thing, from a business community, you know, we have offered a pay-for-performance plan for almost 8 years. We've had very few districts participate in it, but we've had the largest district in the state, or the second largest district in the state.
And Chairman, if I could, just if we have another minute, I'd like to just, in responding to the last speaker, say that one of the things that we spent a lot of time talking about yesterday, and I personally was in New York for 2 days, working on the race to the top and some of those issues. And the states which are the most creative and are willing to change the way we do business are going to be the winners. And so there we need the help of the business community, and the legislature, and to be ready to make those changes. And that may involve new legislation. And I think there we'd love to work as intensively as possible and as quickly as possible. Many states have called special sessions of their legislatures to change legislation to be ready for race to the top. And we need to be able to do that with your help.
I'd like to introduce right now Dean Colson, who works very closely with all of us in higher ed, to introduce the governor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. 2 years ago, I became the governor's special advisor on higher ed. It is the best job in government. I can talk with any of you without noticing it in the newspapers beforehand. And so far, no one has asked me to create an accountability metrics on how I'm performing. But the best part about the job is I've had the opportunity to work for a governor who wants very much to do the right thing in education. You should know he has given me complete unlimited access to his office and to all three of his chiefs of staff that I've worked with the last 2 years who have all been outstanding. He has listened carefully. He has pushed back. He has occasionally changed his mind. And he has constantly urged me and his staff to do more. Governor Christ showed great courage and leadership last year in passing his education agenda. It was almost 2 years in the works, and input was sought from around the state. The work of this council was enormously important, but it was the leadership and political courage of Governor Christ, with the help of Senator Pruitt and the leadership of Representative Weatherford, that made the difference. Everyone in this room, especially the university presidents and trustees, owe a debt of gratitude to our governor for that courage and leadership. But there's much more to be done, and no one knows that more than our governor. So I am thrilled to have the opportunity at this meeting to introduce to you my governor, the governor of the state of Florida, Charlie Crist.
Wow, that was really nice. Thank you very much. I appreciate your kind words, Dean. I don't know if they're all earned, but I'll take them. I'm privileged to be here today, and I want to thank all of you for the hard work that you have put in. Can you hear me okay? Representative Weatherford, thank you for being here. I don't know if you've received an applause, but you sure deserve one. Representative Will Weatherford. Now, I think that Frank Brogan is with us. Are you right there, Frank? Good to see you. Thank you for your service. Commissioner Smith, thank you for all that you're doing. Appreciate your partnership. Dean, I can't thank you enough. Dean is a dear friend, an incredibly bright man, a courageous man, and undertook this endeavor with great spirit. And Dean, thank you so much for all that you have done. I want to thank both the board of Education and the Board of Governors. God bless you for what you do. It's not easy, and you're not paid very much to do it, obviously, and you put in extraordinary hours. The obvious conclusion from that is that you love what you do, and that you love Florida as much as I do, and I appreciate your service to the people. It's an honor to be here. This is an historic meeting, as you know. This is, Tico, good to see you. This is the first time that the State Board of Education and the Board of Governors have met together. And I want to thank specifically the Florida Council of 100, Susan. Your membership and the leadership exemplified by the businesses that make such a difference in our state are truly appreciated by this administration. We need to make sure that we are prepared for our future, that we have a workforce that is second to none. Preparation that takes place first at home, and later in partnership with our K through 12 schools, continues in our colleges and our universities. And the vision that you are beginning to develop today will set the course for Florida's future. It is fitting that we are here at Scripps. What a great biotechnical center. What a great statement about the future of Florida, and it all began here. As well as Florida and future and present innovation-based economy, that depends on a workforce equipped with knowledge and the ability to adapt to a changing technology in our future. Scripps, Florida has been a catalyst for the Sunshine State's biotechnology and biomedical boom. Believe it or not, Florida now has 1,450 biotech firms. Over 9% of all U.S. biotech firms in the country. We are one of the nation's top 10 biotechnology centers according to Ernst & Young, and one of the top 5 regions for biotechnology according to the Fierce Biotech, with more than 120 biotech research and development companies. The result is tremendous economic opportunity for our people, more than 26,000 jobs for our fellow Floridians, including more than 4,000 researchers and technicians. Research and development from the high-tech industries like biotech generate jobs. Collaborations with our colleges and universities draw top faculty members and students to our Sunshine State. And businesses and high-tech industries are able to grow that much faster. The legislation that Dean referred to and I signed last year is reforming Florida State University system. I want to thank you for your help in making that happen. It balances our university's financial needs and continued access for students and families. I specifically want to thank Frank Brogan for that part of it. Because of your leadership, Frank, we continue to reach out to those who are less fortunate. And the Council of 100 has been an important partner in all of this work. Government doesn't have every answer, but by working with the private sector, we can develop answers together. I look forward to the day when all of Florida's 11 universities are ranked among our nation's top 50 research universities, Bernie. Our goal is to turn our top graduates who enter Florida's workforce and fill the innovation-based jobs of Florida's high technology industries. Technology and innovation are at the core of many sectors of Florida's economy. Biotechnology, green technology and renewable energies, digital media and film and entertainment, defense contractors and the training of our military, and information technology as well. As we foster innovation, it strengthens our ability to attract and grow emerging industries. Thanks to the leadership of Governor Bush, we are experiencing meaningful gains in our K through 12 system. We are seeing gains in student achievement. According to the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the NAEP as you know it, 4th and 8th grade students show significant reading and math improvements. FCAT shows a greater percentage of students write at or above grade level now. A greater percentage of students in grades 3 through 10 read at or above grade level also. The number of high school students taking advanced placement exams outpaces all the other states, and they are performing better on those exams. Our minority students also outperform their national counterparts. We are closing the achievement gap, but we have a long way to go. We have fewer F schools than ever before. Thank you, Commissioner, and thanks to our teachers. And more than 3/4 of our schools are A or B schools. That's 2,317. And thanks to legislation signed this year, we are expanding our differentiated accountability program, helping struggling schools more than we ever have before. And it is making a difference to our students. Since taking office, our administration has accomplished much in less than 3 short years. Property tax cuts for our homeowners and businesses. The unanimously passed Cover Florida Health Care Plan, providing access to health care to those who need it the most. Our work to pass the Anti-Murder Act has placed 96 probation violators behind bars, and Operation Orange Tree that captured the monsters who prey on our children has been a success. Our work to see a record of 10,000 foster children adopted into loving, permanent families, and the daily effort to maintain a level of fiscal responsibility keeps Florida in balance. I've also worked to ensure Florida remains business-friendly, streamlining government to eliminate red tape and burdensome regulation that might hold business back. Florida is recognized as a national leader for successful small businesses in particular. Last year, the Small Business Survival Index ranked Florida as the 4th friendliest state for entrepreneurship, as one of the best states for personal income tax rates. And this year, the Tax Foundation has ranked Florida as having the nation's 5th most business-friendly tax code. Together, we have made a real difference in the lives of our fellow Floridians, and I pledge to continue making that a commitment over the next 14 months. We have an urgent need for a pipeline of talent, and I realize that. We must remember that our students compete for jobs with students from not only across the nation, but across the globe. Our businesses compete in the global marketplace as well. It is our responsibility to ensure our students and our workforce are equipped to succeed in a competitive global market. We must ensure a highly skilled workforce to fuel current and future jobs. To the State Board of Education and the Board of Governors, I say thank you. Thank you for your willingness to develop a shared vision, to have an open dialogue about the future of our state. The education of the next generation of our workforce is in your hands. What you discuss here will have a lasting impact for years and generations to come. We have already made significant progress. In April of last year, I announced Florida's participation in the American Diploma Project. Together with 32 other states and education and college and business leaders, we have made a difference. We are working to ensure that students who earn a high school diploma are prepared to enter our college classroom and our workforce. Just as teachers and education leaders communicate with each other as students transition from grade to grade and level to level. To ensure students are receiving the necessary building blocks of learning and the skills needed for that next level. So we are working to ensure that our high school graduates have the knowledge and skills required for successful high school futures. Florida has been revising our Sunshine State standards, transforming them into the next generation Sunshine State standards. These updated standards are more focused and relevant to what our students need to be learning. We have completed the progress with math, science, social studies, physical education, and health education. And the language arts is also currently awaiting that approval. We want our high school graduates to compete in a curriculum that makes them ready for the college and the career of their future. That means we must measure student progress and readiness for those challenges and establish clear expectations not only for our students, but also for our teachers. To develop and keep us achieving higher, we are developing a new FCAT assessment to realign our evaluation with the next generation Sunshine State standards. And we must develop end-of-course exams. It is a fair and comprehensive way to measure a year's worth of learning in a year's worth of time. Our new high school accountability system will base half of a high school's grade on FCAT achievement, and the other half on student participation and performance in a rigorous coursework, such as advanced placement, dual enrollment, industry certification, and on how ready students are for colleges and universities, based on performance on the SAT and the ACT, as well as the school's graduation rate. I understand from Commissioner Smith that we are currently preparing our application for the Race to the Top funds as part of the federal effort to have states compete for a better educational system. $4.35 billion will be distributed in competitive federal grants. It could mean as much as $500 million to our Florida. The federal dollars we have already received are keeping 20,000 teachers working and teaching for our kids. The Race to the Top funds are meant to reward states that are being more innovative, and Florida is innovative. We have already achieved much here in our state, so we are only prudent and wise to ensure that Florida receives our fair share of these dollars. Our students deserve nothing less. As we prepare the application, we will work to define how Florida's interests use Race to the Top funds. We must address 4 education reform areas. First, by adopting internationally benchmarked standards and assessments that prepare students for success in college and the workplace. Second, by recruiting, developing, retaining, and rewarding effective teachers and principals. That means continuing to improve our preparation of quality teachers in all of our colleges and universities. Our colleges of education must ensure our future educators are truly prepared for the challenges of the classroom. Third, we will track student success and communicate that information with teachers and principals so they can adjust their practices as necessary. And fourth, turn around our lowest performing schools, as our differentiated accountability program is doing. In addition, the grant also addresses other priorities that are relevant to your discussions today. there is an emphasis on developing a rigorous curriculum in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, known as the STEM. We will explore how we can involve universities, industry experts, and other community partners in making sure that we assist teachers across all grades and all subjects. Our goal must be to prepare our students for the future, for the workforce that faces each and every one of us. And it's not just about numbers of students. It's also about the diversity of the students, opening our doors to underrepresented minority students and women. I want to thank Susan Story for your vision and your working with the Workforce Florida as well as Enterprise Florida on Florida's first STEM Council. We will also focus on creating a more seamless route for our students, from pre-K to college graduation, especially for students moving from one level to the next. We must ensure that they are prepared for success without remediation. The economic future of our state depends on how we educate our young people. You all know that. The education that we provide opens doors for economic opportunity for them. Florida's future economy depends on the vision you are shaping here today. That's how important your work is. I look forward to working with the Council of 100, the State Board of Education, the Board of Governors, and all of you. I encourage you to keep working to strengthen our supply of talent and developing our innovative economy for our future. Achieving these goals will make our state better for the future and for all of you. God bless you, and thank you for your great work.
We're going to take like a 5-minute comfort break.
Yeah.
I got to get my phone. Everything dropped on the floor.
How you been, lady?
here. We have heard from all of the constituencies. I think we've heard from pre-K through 12, from the university system. We've heard the national perspective, and we've heard from our business community leaders here, as well as our respective boards. And I think what Chairman Fair and I would like to do is to open this for discussion involving the members of the Council 100. So if anybody wants to come up and sit at that table to help facilitate this and be useful, but we want to figure out what our next steps are, because we don't have a whole lot of time for discussion. We maybe have 30 minutes at the most to be able to do that. And so I guess we've all, I mean, I feel like it's very important that we come away from here with some sort of an outline or feeling about how we're going to proceed in the future. Are we going to continue to meet together? Are we going to have work groups? Are we going to direct our staff to develop protocols and procedures, or to outline the sets of priorities to come back to us? And so I'd like to hear from everybody. We'd both like to hear from everybody else as to what you think.
Sure.
Mr. Martinez.
Sure. Let me give it a stab. Thank you very much for organizing all of this, Council, and it's great to have the business community lead this effort because we need your help. I would suggest that the most efficient way to do this is to get our great leaders, the Commissioner and the Chancellor, to come up with a plan. Obviously, you'll consult with us, and then that'll make the process much more efficient. So you all come up with some magic solution, but I can tell you that what I would like, you can do it.
Meeting adjourned.
You can do it, and confer with Dean Colson. He's got no accountability.
I like that part.
By the way, for those who don't know, he's my law partner. So, but I think maybe a meeting, just throwing this up, not committing anything, but maybe meeting again before the legislative session, because I can tell you that I love the fact that the business community has been very energetic at this stage, but I want you to continue to be energetic, because where we need you the most is in March and April. I'm sure we'll have a bunch of legislative ideas dealing with the teaching profession, dealing with the high school accountability, high school requirement, all of that impacts college readiness. And frankly, when it comes time to get the floor votes, all of your lobbyists, understandably, are dispersed out there doing your business. Nothing wrong with that. You have business to protect. But they're not as, ours are not as powerful as yours, I guess. So we really need the business community to come to bat for the education agenda at the next legislative session. So maybe before we start going into session, we have another meeting and we get your support on those items that are key to us. Let me just one last, and Dean's heard me say this a lot, but since I've got you all gathered here, I just don't want to miss up on this opportunity. I think that we have to have a sense of urgency and a commitment to education that is equivalent to what this country had in reaction to the Sputnik era. Okay? I think it really requires it. It's not that we're going to be invaded tomorrow, Dean. Dean tells me I have to be careful in using the term national security issue, but education is a national security issue. Our country is in decline, gradually over generations. We have all the stats to show that. It doesn't mean we're going to get invaded tomorrow. But if you look at what's happening out there in the world with China, India, Brazil, Europe, Singapore, Finland, etc., our kids are losing ground. And their security and the future of this country as the leader of the world is going to be compromised unless we do something now and react in a very serious way to that threat. Because I view it as a threat. And we need the business community to carry that message and to push it. Because us on the Board of Education, we're not powerful enough by ourselves to do it. So I applaud you getting us to this effort, but I view this as a first step, and I hope that you continue to do this aggressively in the future.
Governor Duncan?
Yes, And I concur with everything that's been said. I guess I would maybe, in response to your question of kind of what do we do next, is you two come back with a plan, which I think is a great idea. I hope it is very actionable and not just kind of more talking, because I think we do need to codify this dynamic and this relationship better. So whatever you need from us to help support that to be ready to go, I think we do really need to codify it, be more consistent in our implementation of this dynamic and this dialogue, and keep the ball moving forward to leverage our leadership role in the cooperation between all of the different levels of education.
Looking to the left.
I think ideally, I mean, from my perspective, and I agree with Bobby, Bobby's a lawyer, I'm a business person, so I think we should have a couple of working groups, because the legislative session is right around the corner, and we need to have an agenda and have some prioritization of where the overlap or the shortfall or the collaboration of this joint body, because it's hard enough to get us to our own meetings and through our own agendas on a regular basis. But I think if we had a couple of working groups that then came back with the chancellors and tried to have another meeting before the session, I would advocate that. I don't know if we have to have a motion but I think that there are some areas that were outlined through Susan's presentation and both the chancellor and the commissioner's presentations that we could get a couple of focus working groups, joint working groups out of this body. I also think that this race to the top provides a wonderful opportunity for the business community and the consolidated group here to assist the department, because that is potentially really real money, and Florida is probably positioned based on the 8 years of what we've done so far, and granted it's not enough, to really be one of the top 3 or 4 sort of go-getters of that money, which would help. As we know, funding is going to be constrained, as Will has told us all, and Senator Gates, and it's not going to, resources are going to be very limited. So I think anything that is on the table, and I think that is an active sort of coordination that we could really use a working group from the business community to help the department in that application, in terms of, because there are areas of both commitment and concern and active engagement. Are there not, Chancellor Smith, in terms of where the business community could actually be front and center for us? So I don't know if there's a need for a motion to have some working groups, but I just would like to, or maybe a sense of the group here, and meet before the legislative session. I do agree with that.
Governor Stavros, I think, wants to comment.
I just want to commend that this is an outstanding workshop. I have enjoyed each of the presentations. Education is everybody's business. Everybody should be involved in it, the business community, educators. I've been on the Board of Governors for 3 years now, and I've learned that we have outstanding presidents of our universities, a great university system. I spoke to the commissioner. Yes, we should be great in research, and we should continue what we're doing. The Pappas report was correct, and we're as the Chancellor said, the Pappas report is a great outline for us to work on. I did talk to the Commissioner about career education. I think this is critically important. John Gates, Senator Gates, Okaloosa County, certified their young people in high school, and we need it in great community college system we have. We need it in the community college, and also our young people, if they're not going to go to college, they should have careers. It's important in our economic development of this state. So I just think this workshop is tremendous, and we're in the right direction, and I really commend everybody that's been involved.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a comment. Listening to the presentations, most of the focus was on our students once they are in high school and graduation. Dave mentioned that we need to increase the number of graduates that are ready for college. And I have a question for you, Dave, because in my mind we have to increase the number of students that are in the pipeline before they get into high school. So as we work as a board, a combined board, I think we need to focus on pre-K through university. because I think what happens at the pre-K level determines what happens at the university level. And so Susan had asked for a recommendation on efficient use of funds. I think focusing and having the Board of Governors realize how important it is to focus on pre-K as well as the university would be very important. We do remediation in first grade. It doesn't wait until the community college or the university level. And so those are extra funds that are spent that can't be spent in other ways. So as we move forward, our agendas could be to create a curriculum that goes from pre-K through the university. This morning's presentation was very interesting for me. They said that the last century focused on the physical science. The next century will be bioscience century. And they are starting here at Scripps to introduce science in the preschool. And so having these boards work together to create a curriculum from preschool all the way through the university to address what Susan also said, addresses the STEM issue. So I think focusing on our preschool and having students ready, maybe even recommending that we have a readiness level at which they have to be at to go into first grade, because that's the first time we can mandate participation. So we should say, this is the level, just as you do at the university level. You have to be at a certain level, so we don't have remediation at that level. So there are ways that the boards can work together to support each other's agendas. As Gus said, our agenda is everyone's agenda. So if the Board of Governors supports the K through 12 agenda and we support the university agenda, and we work together in that way, and it goes what Bobby is saying, that we work with the legislatures to support each other's agendas, I think that would be very important.
Are there any comments down this way? Governor Tripp, then Governor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would hope that our two boards can make sure that we ensure that 2+2 in this state stays intact. I've had the opportunity to serve on what was then the State Board of Community Colleges, and we've now seen a system of state colleges come in place. But we must remember that many, many people become wonderful university students because of the opportunity they have by starting in what is now the state college system. And it's incumbent upon our two groups to make sure that we do not do anything that would impact the ability of our students in the state of Florida to continue that way. It's the greatest system in the nation, and we cannot let our politics and our maneuvering, and it's saying bluntly, you know, there are issues on both sides about how we see ourselves and how we'd like to be, and through all of that, we've got to come out of this so that the students know that we have protected that system in the state of Florida, and the opportunity and the access that it affords every student continues under our watch.
I think, as you said about Chairman McDivitt, I think Norm Tripp just took my remarks. And I have such confidence that these two boards, both of them are dedicated to doing what's best for our citizens and for our state, and I appreciate so much everyone's work. But as we move forward and plan and talk about access and success, we don't want to break anything that's worked beautifully, and that is articulation. And as I've gone around the state and been involved in this and been in the country, it's one thing we're admired for is our articulation agreement. And I just remind you, when I'm not sitting here to remind you, to keep that, our students, at the beginning of every discussion, and they do depend on articulation, and that is what makes us a seamless system.
Obviously, this has been a great day for everyone to come together and talk about the status of higher ed in the state of Florida. The key is next steps. What do we do next? Do we have working groups? Do we meet before the legislative session starts? I'd like to put time frames if we can. Maybe have the two chancellors get together and report back to respective boards for 30 days in terms of an action plan and the frequency that we could meet and maybe as a starting point, identify the 4 key points that Susan Story laid out to us this morning. There may be other areas we may add, but have that as the starting point of the 4 maybe key areas that the respective boards can actually identify as a working group session. But come back to us within 30 days with an actionable plan so we can have this as a historic moment. Also, we'll be heavily involved.
I think you've heard a number of specifics from various members that might relate to drilling down on those 4 points. And I think it would be, from my perspective, helpful if the Commissioner and the Chancellor would take everything you've heard here today and use that framework and try to drill down a little bit on the specifics of what we would specifically address in those very broad categories in developing work groups and bring back something. And I agree with Mr. Martinez here that we need to kind of pace our schedule so that we have a product that's useful for both boards prior to the legislative session. And that gets closer and closer when you take into account the committee meetings and all of that kind of thing. And I mean, that's where I'm coming from. I see we've got Governor Perez down there.
Just a quick comment. We haven't talked about in all the presentations this morning, and I would hope as the Commissioner and the Chancellor talk about the working groups and the focus, that we do find or determine whether or not there is a way we can work together also to focus on the existing dropout rate and non-completion of high school, particularly among African American and Hispanic students. I know particularly the Hispanic numbers are staggering. And if there is a way that our 2 groups can work together to focus on that component, perhaps through encouraging of some earlier STEM courses to get rid of the intimidation or whatever the case may be, I'd like that included in our conversational topics. I think it's essential.
I will make one anecdotal comment. Yesterday when Chancellor and I were over here with some of the people from Scripps, Dr. Lerner was telling us about having an advertised science day on a Saturday here, and they had over 6,000 kids show up. I was like stunned. So there's interest out there. I mean, that's very encouraging if we get focused on how to direct it.
We have a math science center at the state too, just from the State Board of Education that Dr. Mary Jane Tappan runs, who is I'm sure working with Scripps, but also other institutions.
Madam Chair, proceed. No, you first.
I just have a kind of a smaller question, because one thing that that's happened so quickly this year is this big change from our community colleges to our state colleges. And I've gotten just different calls about, what's the process, how do the state colleges decide, which degree programs are they going to offer? I mean, these are concerns I just get from citizens within the community who kind of see the change. And I couldn't really adequately answer the question because I don't really know exactly. I know what the general rule is, but I'm not sure that there's some overriding policy out there that everyone's being governed by. It seems to me that there's an open window for tremendous growth, kind of just based upon the individual concern of that state college or individual interest. And I kind of would just, as you guys come together, and I thought about this whenever the chairman said that we learn a lot about what the Board of Education does as well as what the Board of Governors does today. That was one thing that I just have a basic interest in and don't have enough knowledge about. That is, in this big window where we have so much growth, what's happening and what steps are in place to ensure that we're following whatever the rules are. And if you could kind of just have that, as the Chancellor and the Commissioner come together, if you can just kind of educate me, and I think the board, or at least the Board of Governors on that, we can better kind of deal with the growth that's going to be, or the growth that is happening within the state kind of very quickly right now.
We can get email just what's in statute currently.
Just a quick procedural, having heard the charge, which is trustee to fix it. The issue of participation, I'm going to do, first of all, working with the commissioner. That's the easy part. He and I work well together. He is going to turn to some of his great people. I'm going to turn to some of my great people to help round out this conversation. We know where to go to find business people who are interested and already at the table. I would say, and it strictly is procedural, because of the timing and the urgency to move as quickly as possible, that both chairs be able to, if requested by the commissioner and I, perhaps offer us up one or two members of the respective boards in these conversations. Rather than simply wait to put something in front of you, it might be nice to have your input symbolically or through delegation from membership before we do that. It'll, I think, save us time on the back end. So if we call and ask for representation from the board, your board's agreement that you would have the ability to assign or ask to be assigned to us members of the board.
No problem.
No one on our board objects to that, do you?
No problem.
I mean, we can't take votes here, but sure.
Great.
Susan, you have anything to add?
Again, I just want to end the way I started, which is I just want to thank all of you. I think today has just been a terrific day, and the winner of this being such a successful meeting and the work that will come from this are all the young people, and the young people that will make sure that we can live in retirement comfortably in Florida, because they're keeping business going and they're keeping organizations going and government going in the most efficient way possible. So I do appreciate all your leadership, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to speak to you today.
Well, at every meeting, I always like to do something that would make everybody remember that I was here. Meeting is adjourned.
Nobody ever.